The Flyin Lion says,
boys, hell is real.
2023 Supporter Shield champs.
Just give me a reason to drink some Guinness in the morning.
Yeah, just a fan of the sport, you know.
I appreciate the opportunity.
It's definitely tougher to be an academy player than it is a pro.
Soccer's my favorite sport now.
The jersey swap was
my car of the week, trivia question of the week. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Flyin Lion Podcast. Today, we are joined by the one and only Tom Gelehrter, or better known as Tommy G in the FC Cincinnati sphere, the voice of FC Cincinnati since their debut in 2016. He is, of course, the team's iconic play-by-play announcer. He has brought the excitement of the orange and blue to life for the fans on local broadcasts and on Apple TV, which we love listening to. Beyond the mic, Tom is a founder and CEO of Fourth Floor Creative, a production team behind some of your favorite projects like the Nonstop Flight, FC Cincinnati Story. Tommy G, welcome to the podcast.
Fellows, good to see you. Glad to be here with you. Nice to hear your voice and fill some of this void of the offseason. We've already had some news this week. It feels like this offseason, look, Major League Soccer offseason is short. This one's a little bit longer than any of us would have liked. I wish that it was just beginning and we were planning for a parade tomorrow or something along those lines. Not the case this year, but hopefully in the future. But no, certainly glad to be here tonight and chat with you guys.
Yeah, awesome. Glad to have you.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Like you mentioned, like last year it was such a short off season, and then this year it's a little bit different. But the news is never ending. Like we saw that today. So we wanted to ask you, where are you from originally?
I'm from Cleveland, Ohio originally. So Ohio native, born and raised in Shaker Heights, so a suburb just outside of Cleveland. And I went to Syracuse. So I was in Cleveland until 18 years old. Went to Syracuse for 4 years. Came back and didn't have a job and was trying to find a job. And as you work your way through broadcast and everything, ended up with a job at the University of Akron that was very poorly paying. So I lived with my mom for a bit there until I could find my way to make enough money to get my own place. But I lived in Cleveland again then for 4 years after college and then came down to Cincinnati. So I've been to Cincinnati since 2006. We're on 18 years now or so in Cincinnati. So it's been a great run down here. Love it. Obviously love everything I've been able to do with FC Cincinnati, but Cleveland born and raised, which sometimes brings me, bumping heads with some of our supporters, who are diehard Bengals fans, because I'm a diehard Browns fan. I don't think the Guardians and the Reds necessarily have a whole lot of beef. But we play each other maybe four games a year. So out of 162 games, 158, I'm all about the Reds. Love the Reds. Cheer for the Reds. 4 games a year, I'll cheer for the Guardians against the Reds. But obviously Bengals and Browns have a long-standing rivalry, and that'll make me some friends when those two play here and there.
I would say it's a similar amount of sadness and things that we've gone through as fan bases, right? I mean, not many Super Bowls to call ours, if any,
no.
For either. So it's kind of interesting, you growing up near Cleveland and then you moved to Cincinnati and you're like, well, we've got FC Cincinnati now. Like this is
exactly right, and that's
as
something
much
they don't
positivity
have.
as we've gotten.
Right, and it's great because I'm not too far. Right, 250 miles to get home. See family, those kind of things. So it's easy whether I got to go for a day or, for Thanksgiving, we were able to get up there for 4 days. So that's awesome. But no, we love it. We love it here in Cincinnati. It's been great. Obviously what the club has done for the last decade now. I mean, look, when this thing kicks off in February, that's the start of season 10 for the club. And to think of what they've accomplished in that decade is remarkable. That 10 years ago these meetings were very quietly going on with Jeff Birding leading the charge and bringing Carl Lindner on and then slowly trying to bring other people into the fold. But I got Cleveland in my heart because that's where I'm from and I got the Cavs and there's no NBA team here, so we don't run into any rivalries there, so that part's easy. But I grew up with a lot of snow, like obviously, and then I went to Syracuse where there's a lot of snow. 195 inches of snow my junior year at Syracuse, which is like diabolical. Like, it's still the record. I mean, you look it up, that winter of what that would have been 2000, 2001, 195 inches, and I did women's basketball games then, so I had to be there during the break. I living in this house by myself, like my roommates aren't there.
I was
Like
gonna say,
trying to
were you
shovel my
just were
car
you just
out.
like staying like at the stadium,
At the
right?
place,
Like
yeah,
staying the
right.
night, right?
Yeah, I mean, you find a way, and to be fair, they clear it up. But I don't get as much snow down here as you do in Cleveland or in Syracuse, and I kind of become accustomed to that, and that's okay.
I don't think we've had a snow game for FC Cincinnati, have we? I was trying to think
No,
about
that's
that.
a very good
Yeah.
point, and I was too. We've discussed this multiple times. Patrick O'Leary is one of the communications guy. You can follow him on Twitter and check out his awesome stats. And anytime that I have anything that feels like, oh, I came up with this great stat, I usually fact check it through Patrick before
Oh yeah,
I run
Patrick's
with it on
great.
my social
Yeah.
media, or if I if I put it out on the air during a broadcast, I'll just kind of want to confirm. There was a lot of talk this year about temperatures, right? We had a couple games that pushed the coldest game time temperatures that we've seen for a match, and Patrick does a great job of tracking that. And I brought it up, and then it's funny because you can always fact check with the Kitman too. I found that's a great place either to get early information on jersey numbers, because I do a lot of prep, and my charts are very intricate, and I print them early in the week. So I want to print it. I want to, I'm a little OCD about my charts. If you've seen them, like they're color coded and everything. And often I'll text Teddy Kerr, who is the kit man, longtime kit man for Cincinnati. I'll ask him for a kit number. A new signing like Chidozie comes on. Who's the news of today? Obviously, him been moving on, but like I want to get my chart done. I want to get printed. And it's not always in the press release when it comes out. So I'll go to him, but I'll also go to him because look, he's in charge of all the equipment, so he knows if the snowballs have been rolled out.
Sure.
And it's unbelievable because not home or away, right? We haven't had one at home,
Right.
but I don't know that we've had a game where the snowballs have had to be used. We had an insanely cold game in Chicago to start the 23 season, but there was no snow. I mean, it was too cold to snow in that game. But yeah,
Colorado,
we've never had
Yeah, I was about to say Colorado was really
no, but we
even
played
there,
Colorado in the summer. Like,
Yeah.
both times we've been there. So, yeah, that would be an option. Minnesota would be an option, but we were there in September this year, and it was dead of summer the other time. So, yeah, no, that's trust me, it's the snow globe game is go back to my NFL allegiances, talking about the Browns and watching that game a couple weeks ago against the Steelers, prime time with the snow coming down. Like that's what you dream of, kind of being a sicko from Cleveland, and grew up going to those games. So yeah, I'm hoping. I mean, my fingers are crossed. I don't know if the players or the ground crew probably isn't dreaming of that, but it's certainly what I dream of.
2025 MLS Cup, book it. Snow game.
Oh,
right
it would be amazing. TQL Stadium. I mean, any MLS Cup,
That's
TQL
right.
Stadium. I don't care what the weather looks like. Will be a dream come true. But a snow globe game against a team that prefers warm weather would be great.
Well, Tom, we wanted to ask you, how did you first get involved with the club? You mentioned those meetings with Jeff Burton early on. Did you meet with him or?
Yeah, it's funny because I was one of the what do they call it, the kitchen table guys. There's 5 of us around the kitchen table kind of planning the club, but it didn't, in my connections didn't start with Jeff. And Jeff and I had probably crossed paths, and we talked about this very early on, probably sitting in his kitchen that, I was at UC and he was at the Bengals, obviously, for a very long time. And UC played a couple games at Paul Brown Stadium. Over my course of my tenure, I was a sideline reporter. I obviously built their whole new media department at UC. And we actually played my last season, 2014 was when they were doing the renovation at Nippert Stadium. They played the whole season at Paul Brown Stadium at the time, right?
Yeah.
And I believe, as I recall, it was a season to forget. But it was, we played the whole year there because Nippert was closed. So I'm sure that, and he would help UC with all their stuff in getting organized, with their suites and their premium seats and a lot of those things. And so I'm sure like our paths had to have crossed somewhere in there. But, we didn't spend a whole lot of time together. And the summer of 2015 or even in the spring. So, I had told UC I was leaving in April. I quietly for a couple months been planning Fourth Floor Creative. That was my next step. That was my next challenge. And, I'd done a lot of college basketball on television. I loved doing college basketball on television. I'd done some college football. I was Dan Hord's fill-in whenever he had conflicts, with men's basketball or football on the radio on WOW. So that was awesome. And I was just ready for this new challenge in starting fourth floor creative. It was something we kind of joked about for years. And then he said, you know what, we're going to do this. And so I resigned my position in April. And Dan McNally, who's obviously still with the club, employee number one, he had left the university a couple months before that. He had been with the men's soccer program, but we had always been close and good friends. And Jeff Smith, who obviously is employee number two and still with the club. And we had been very close. Our families were very close. We've always been good friends. I mean, 2016 International Bowl, that was my roommate. That was my first bowl game, or 2006 International Bowl with UC. Jeff and I were roommates. So we've been friends for a long time. And I knew when I left that he was thinking of leaving UC. And so I had started fourth floor creative in April. And by June, I'm in Orlando and I meet with this guy named Andrew Keene, who played at UC. Andrew and Omar Cummings, top two men's soccer players ever to play for the Bearcats, period. Like, there's no arguing it. Both Hall of Famers, both amazing players. Andrew played before I was there, but he would come back from time to time. And so we became friends, and we were in Orlando at the same conference. So we got lunch together. He's like, hey, I got to tell you about something. I'm going to have Dan McNally give you a call. And he had been friends with Dan because Dan had coached there. He's like, there's going to be a soccer team in Cincinnati. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. And, I've told the story before, but it's like, soccer had never really thrived, obviously, right? This is a whole different beast is FC Cincinnati. But I was like, all right, this could be an opportunity to help the club out as they get started. And no sooner than I left the conference at the Orlando airport, my phone rings and it's Dan McNally. Oh, wow. And he's like, mate, we got to talk. And we need you. We need you. We need fourth floor creative. Like, we got to get off the ground. This is what we need. Come meet me at the Red Tree Cafe, the one in Oakley, right? Over there, that's where they would hold their meetings if during the day. The evening meetings were at Jeff Birding's house, but Jeff Birding was still working for the Bengals. So he'd work all day, 10 hours for the Bengals, and then he'd come home. We'd meet him at the house at 7 o'clock and drink beer and eat pizza and play in his club. And, so Dan – so I'm on the hook for a meeting with Dan. He's going to introduce me to Gary DeJesus, who handled the early marketing stuff. And in the meantime, Jeff Smith calls me. And he's like, hey, I got to tell you about this soccer team. You can't say anything to anybody. I said, oh. Well, I may already be in. Like, I got a meeting. And he's like, oh, let's go. I'll be there. Like, we got to make sure that this works out. So, we sat there and then literally the first time that I met Jeff Birding, we're all sitting he has like a retaining wall by his garage. We're all sitting there waiting for him to get home from the Bengals. And he comes home and we sat there and, in the cover of darkness and we're playing the club there that summer of, 2015 before we got this thing going in 2016. And so it started literally right there. It started with, we need to like have these great videos to launch a club, right? We need to have tickets on sale as soon as it's over, but we need a big video to launch the club. And I'm like, we have no highlights. We have no uniforms. Literally, we shot some of that video at Gettler Stadium in the dark.
Did you guys have a logo at that point, or?
We did have a logo.
Okay.
We had a logo, but they didn't have any uniforms yet, right? And it maybe had like one prototype, but. So we were shooting it in like at Gettler, and we were like silhouetting the players, so you couldn't tell who they were or what they were wearing. I think I went and bought like a bunch of Nike shirts at Dick's that just had a swoosh on it, to fake it a little bit. But so we started there, and we did the big video. Then they could call, and they're like, "Well, John Harkes is going to be the coach, so we want a video to announce John Harkes." And so I call around and I get MLS teams to send me some highlights of him. Photos. I called the national team. I called U.S. Soccer, and I'm like, I need you to send me some highlights of him playing. They're like, well, you got to pay for that. I'm like, what? like every 5 seconds is X number of dollars. It was like insane. And I'm like, and they're like, and if there's another player in, like, let's say John Harkes scores and he hugs Alexi Ollis, the price goes up because there's two national team players. I'm like, all right, we're not doing that. So we're just going to use them. We'll send me 4 photos, whatever the minimum I can get is. We'll use photos. We'll use highlights from MLS, and it'll be fine. And so and then someone needed to stream the press conference, right? That announcement at UC, right outside Nippert Stadium. So that's how it got started, and it was great, and it was successful, and we had a ticket commercial ready to go right away and all this stuff. And probably within a week or two, Jeff Birding emails me and says, "Hey, I want to go take you out to breakfast. Can we go get some breakfast?" So sure, man, I'm a huge breakfast guy. If you know anything about me, it's breakfast. Like,
love breakfast.
Let's go. Like every morning on the road, I'm the first one down at the restaurant in the hotel. Like, give me a buffet, let me feast. So So Jeff and I go out for breakfast, and he's like, "Hey, we need more. Like, we got to keep this train moving. You know, we got to come up with some more videos. We got to come up with some messaging, this, that, and other thing." And he goes, "I want to talk to you about broadcast because I know you have experience in broadcast, and I want to put together the best broadcast deal in USL, like the best. I want to have the best." And I said, "All right." Like, I'd done a little research. I'd watched some of the games. Like, to be fair, the bar wasn't like super high, but some teams were doing it well, and others were just mailing it in, right? And I think it was obvious, who that was. But he was like, "I want to have the best. And like, this is going to be our commercial for 2 hours every night, and I want to be good." And he was like, "So I want you to put together a broadcast crew. I want you to put together. I need you to find a TV station to get on because I want every game on TV." And I need you to find trucks and bring me a budget and all this stuff. I mean, this is in October, right? Probably 6 months out. So I said, sure. And I got to it, and I called people, and, he told me, by December, it was about this time of year, I remember, he called me down to the office. At that point, I guess they had moved into 4th Street, they're on the 3rd floor now. And I go to his office, and he's like, "Hey, I got this guy. You're going to love him as an analyst. His name's Kevin. He works over at King's Hammer. He's in Ireland right now. So we're going to call him right now. He's not going to answer because it's nighttime. He's not going to answer, but you're going to hear his accent. You're going to love him." And I mean, sure as heck, we called him there on speakerphone in office. He didn't answer. Jeff left him a message. "I'm going to connect you with Tommy. I want you to meet Tommy. Here's his phone number. Text him, call him. You're going to be a broadcast analyst. We want you like audition basically to be a broadcast analyst." So that's how I get to meet Kevin, right? And, fast forward a couple of weeks, Kevin's back from Ireland. It's January, and we have like an epic Cincinnati snowstorm, like epic snowstorm. And I'm in Mason on a shoot with my crew, and we're supposed to meet in Newport. And I'm talking like 71's a disaster. And like, there was part of me that was like, I got to call this Kevin Cat and tell him like, I'm not coming, and I'm like, but that's wrong. And like, I got to get this done for Jeff. Like Jeff is, asked me to meet with him and see if I like him and if we should, include him on our broadcast team. And so like whatever that, light was or that moment is like, you got to go meet him no matter how long it takes to get to Newport. And it probably took me 45, 50 minutes to sled down 71, white knuckling the whole way. And I got there and sure as heck, we went to Newport Pizza Company. And that's how Kevin and I met, so now these things are rolling and, we're getting ready for the first season of FC Cincinnati.
Dang. I mean, I've met Kevin before. Great guy. Great. Like, just, I think based off of what Jeff said, like the fact that he's like, "Hey, listen to the voicemail though. Like the voice is phenomenal.
I know.
Like, you'll love him based off of that. I promise." Like,
no, 100%, and I give Kevin a hard time. That's still now we've done games together for 9 years. And I joke that I still only understand like 75% of what he says. Like sometimes it'd be like, "You didn't even like respond to what I said." I say, I didn't catch it. Man.
Yeah, just like, let you fly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got to tell us about like the relationship with you guys. That you obviously said 9 years together, but this year it kind of came to fruition with the videos, the goal celebration videos. And it's become a thing now.
Love that cam. Love the cam.
Yeah, it's fun, right? It's funny because the Browns have a sponsored segment, the call of the week or call of the game, and so that probably started. Well, it goes back. Honestly, they've been doing it for a couple years, all the way to COVID. I think they probably started it at COVID. It was probably one of those like sponsor makeups where they, lost a sponsor for whatever reason, or lost one of their deliverables, and so they were like, "We're going to put a camera in the booth." And the Browns got kind of good that year. And if you remember Jim Donovan's call, and it was just surfaced a lot, as he passed, his call when the Browns clinched the playoffs, there was only 6,000 people in the stadium, in a 70,000 seat stadium, because they were on a capacity, limit. And he has this iconic call, like the Browns are back in the playoffs, and the only thing that's missing is all of you. And it's like a goosebump moment as a Browns fan because you're right. There should have been 70,000 people there going bonkers and partying all night and all that kind of stuff. And there was only 6,600 people in the building or whatever it was. And I kind of was like, like we should do something like that. Like DC United had something when the clubs had the TV deal, they had like a call of the game. And I kind of brought it up, and it was a tricky one because, for 3 years we weren't very good, and right. That makes it really difficult to have like a call of the game or play the game when things aren't going your way. So once we got into radio only in 23 and obviously got very good en route to the supporter shield, I kind of had thought about it, and I was like, if in the playoffs, like we're gonna do something here, like I'm gonna, I obviously have GoPros and cameras and mounts and all the technology I need, to make this happen on my own. And, it's funny because in 2023, the club actually came to me and said, we're going to do booth camp for a couple of games. And they did. And it was like 2 games at home that were crummy. like we lost a game to Orlando 1-0.
Oh, yeah.
At home, I think. That was one of them. And then the next game maybe was a draw, and it was like a penalty kick goal. So, like, it was nice, but it was like 1-1.
No reactions from the booth, no nothing. Like
it wasn't like, I mean, it was fine, but it wasn't super dramatic, right? And then they got busy, right? And the booth game didn't come back. But I have this technology, so I brought it. And once we got in the playoffs, I was like, we gotta run this, right? Like the Yerson Mosquera goal, obviously, to win against Philadelphia was iconic. And then this year, now I just keep it in the booth. Keep it in the booth at TQL Stadium. And I obviously can take it wherever I would like. And I did for the Columbus game when we won up there finally, winning in Columbus this year. Jimmy was on that game with me. So, it was great to have Jimmy on that game, and he did a fantastic job. I took it somewhere else on the road, and then the game didn't go well later in the season this year. But had it for the playoffs this year. So, no, it's I mean, and then obviously had it for all the home games, and we had some pretty spectacular goals. Luca's goals this year, Lucho's late goal to win it. So I think it's fun. Like, look, everybody in life, I think in everything, right? You like a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah,
people love behind the scenes.
Love it,
and it doesn't have to do with broadcast. It can do with anything. You know what I mean? It's cool. I mean, I'm a nerd, but like, it's cool to see like how Teddy and the kit men like get ready for a game, and and I think fans appreciate that when the team puts out a video that shows it. NFL teams or Major League Baseball teams, anybody, any walk of life that like you're interested in a behind the scenes peek. If you're a Taylor Swift fan and you get behind the scenes of her preparation for a concert, you probably geek out about that, right?
Right.
I don't know that I'd go crazy or what, but like this other stuff is the stuff that I love. I love other people who do the booth cam and seeing how they react. And obviously, it doesn't have to be a team like the Browns that I'm attached to. So no, it's a lot of fun. And it's I like to give a lot of people, and I think, look, it shows how much we all love this club, and what it means to us. And I'm going to be unapologetically like myself. I'm not going to try to be someone else. I'm going to be unapologetically me. And that means that I love the club, and that when the club's doing well, I love those moments.
Yeah,
it shows up, man, like in your calls. Like we really appreciate the passion that you bring for it. And I think that's why we love the videos too. And just to see you guys, like the raw emotion, like of the two of you, like hugging and like cheering, because you're, like you said, you're fans, number one. And like you have a lot, vested in that too. So we appreciate that. You mentioned with Jimmy, and we wanted to just kind of ask, like, prepping with different players this year, has that been interesting? I mean, I think you did it last year as well, I'm pretty sure. But
last year was the first year. So like when we transitioned to radio, Kevin had made the decision due to his other obligations that he couldn't travel. He just had too much going on work-wise, so he couldn't travel in 2023. And Omar Cummings had filled in for Kevin, go back to the end of 2020. Yeah, it was 2020, the end of that 2020 season. Kevin's at the time girlfriend, now wife, had COVID, and if anybody in your household had COVID, like you were sidelined for like 14 days. And back then we all had backups. Like literally every position had backups, because if I got COVID in the morning, like who are we calling to call a game on short notice? And I'd reach out to Omar when we were coming back to play those games and said, would you like, and Omar and I again, go back to me calling his game. I called Omar's games at UC. So Omar and I have been friends now, since I moved to Cincinnati. Like Omar's, a great, great friend. And when they signed him, like that was so cool, like kind of full circle, for me. But and we have good chemistry. Our families get together for Thanksgiving, those kind of things. So I was like, Omar and I'll be comfortable together. So he had filled in twice in 2020. So when Kevin had come to me and said this, I said, all right, like, let's go back to Omar, see if he's still interested and wants to do some games and can get on the road. But Omar also is a club ambassador. Like, he has a pretty important role here in our community. So he can't do 17 road games. So where else do we turn? And we kind of went through a couple of different, thoughts and iterations. And I brought up, and Vince Cicero was my boss for broadcast at the time. I said, the club has Jeff Lorenowitz in this role that's kind of being figured out. And I was really good friends with the TV play-by-play voice in Atlanta, Kevin Egan, who's the host now, on Apple TV. And I knew that, and Mo Adu was their lead analyst, but Mo is all over the place. So Mo has obligations all over, so he'd have conflicts. So they would often, Jeff had retired, and they had Jeff fill in sometimes on broadcast. He had done one of our games when we were in Atlanta, so I'd met him. And I said, why don't we talk to Jeff Lorenowitz, see if I can get him on some games? Like, he was good, and Kevin Egan raved about him. So I called, we finally got in touch with Jeff, and he said, yeah, he'd like to do it. And Jeff, Ivy League educated, like, he's brilliant. And talking about everybody's style is different. Like, we played that Atlanta game in 23 down there when we came from behind, scored twice in the last 15 minutes. And Jeff is like the pros pro, 400 appearances in Major League Soccer, respected by everybody. He was the union rep for years, like all these things. And so smart. Both the goals, if you go back and listen to the highlights from that game, both the goals, Jeff, like, calls before they get to the goal scorer. Like, Brandon scores the game winner, right? And he yells Brandon's name, like, before the ball. He's like, Brandon! Like, he's, like, willing the ball to him. And, like, Jeff's, like, mortified after the fact because he knows, like, I don't talk over my play-by-play guy. And he was, like, apologetic. I'm like, Jeff, it's okay. Like, I get it. You caught yourself. But, like, so we had Jeff, and then Jeff's role obviously advanced. He just won, MLS Next Pro Executive of the Year. Mm-hmm. And rightfully so, like, what he's done there. And I kind of joked with him, like, I guess that was a good decision to go lead the 2 team and not, not be in the booth with me, 7-8 times a year. But we were left a little bit scrambling, when we made that decision during off season. But look, I've talked to other guys. So Jimmy, I've always thought would be strong in the booth. So I reach out to Jimmy straight away. Jimmy, you want to join me? Yeah. Corbin Bone, you want to join me? These are all guys who I know I have chemistry with too, right? Mm-hmm. I get along. I go to lunch with. I have drinks with. Like, these are my guys. Yeah, let's have them on. And then Vince and I are sitting there talking. I said, you know who else we should reach out to? Ray Gaddis. Like, he's just in Indy. Like, Ray is again another pros pro, 200 some appearances in Major League Soccer. Like, a great guy. Like, he's the guy who always comes over after training and shakes your hand and checks in with you, asks how my kids are, and sees my kids at a game or sees my kids at an event and stops and takes time to talk to them. And I was like, Ray's just in Indy, and I feel like he would be good. Like, why don't we call him and just see? Like, and we're like, let's want to make sure this is a there's peace between the club and him in the way that his career ended. That it's cool, but then there was, of course. So, so we got Ray in. And I wouldn't say that I prepared differently necessarily, but I kind of had to prepare them differently, right? Mm-hmm. Like, Omar knows the format. Omar has done a bunch of games with me now, and he rolls with it. And Omar's like the easiest guy in the world, right? Like, he's happy, he's like unfazed. Yeah. And then you get, but Ray had never done broadcast. Jimmy had never done broadcast. Corbin had never done broadcast. And they all fit in really well. Got it. So, they may ask different questions or suggest different things, and they're all different styles. So it takes a little time. Like, the disappointing part of not doing the games with Jeff Lorenowitz this year is that by the end of the year, Jeff and I had, like, really good chemistry together. And I felt like we had really got it rolling. But again, he's right where he should be and not in the booth with me. But I'm lucky to have all these guys. Like, I have a great 5-a-side team. If we could roll it out somewhere, I put those 5 against anybody. But I'm lucky to have a longtime partner in Kevin, and obviously all the chemistry we have, and then have my 4 subs who've done a fantastic job.
So with that, I mean, any sneak peeks on who we could get this upcoming season? I mean, we got Justin Hoyt, new coach in the FC
Justin's
Cincinnati
back in
Academy,
town, right?
I mean, we got Ledesma. He's becoming an ambassador.
He's on the
as well.
Spanish broadcast.
Exactly.
Oh, that's right.
So I see Manu, and we share like the warmest of embraces in the hallway usually, or he comes to our booth to say hello, or I go down to their booth to say hello, at the home games. But he's tied up on the Spanish. But that's the beauty of it is that, like, you're right. If those 5 guys were all unavailable for whatever reason, like, I feel pretty confident that I could spend a couple hours with Justin and prepare him to talk soccer for 3 hours with me on the air, right? And the beauty of it as an analyst too is that a lot of it is you're reacting to what you're seeing. Like I'm painting the picture in black and white, and you're making it colorful. This is how I've always explained it to these guys. You're giving the insight that frankly I don't have and don't possess because I'm not a former player or former coach or something along those lines. So no, it's look, I think year 10 we'll have some good things going for sure.
So I was going to say, I mean, you talked about the beginning to now in 10 years, like I'm sure there's tons of opportunities for celebration of that as well, and to kind of see how things have changed over the years too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the whole season, especially the home games, will be a big celebration of year number 10, and kind of looking back. I mean, look, I think everything you do in life, again, you can say no matter what your job is or what your profession is, like you should celebrate how far you've come via hard work and everything else. And I think the club will do that certainly with this 2025 campaign.
Yeah, I think we have a lot set up for a good year next year as well. Anything that you're keeping your eye on for the 25 season?
Well, I mean, look, I think it's a bit of a loaded question.
I know, it's open-ended right there. You can name it.
Yeah, where do you want me to go with that? That's a good one. I mean, look, on the field, there's obviously, as we stand today, question marks. Right. There's a lot of security and stability as well. Roman Celentano will be in his 4th year as a starting goalkeeper in Major League Soccer. Like that, everybody should be really excited about. Matt Miazga is coming back from a serious injury. And from everything that I've gathered in my conversations with Matt, like his rehab is going well and he's on schedule, which is great. And now it changes when he starts playing those preseason games and, isn't working out on his own or working with Nick Hagelin every day. But you got to get if we get Matt Miazga back to 2023 form, which obviously I think is the expectation with the news of Chidozie Awazian being traded to Colorado, that Matt's on pace to be there, right? We saw Teenage Hadabi at the end of the year and what he can do. And I think as he gets more comfortable in the system and more comfortable with Cincinnati and Pat and everybody and his teammates, he'll flourish. Miles Robinson is class. Like, I mean, I don't say it just because he went to Syracuse, but I do say it because he went to Syracuse. And, Chris had kind of like given me just like some breadcrumbs last season, or last year, right before, like a couple weeks before, like we're talking about the center back situation. I was like, there's no way that, like you got a plan, right? Like Yerson's not back. Like there's no way Yerson's back. He's like, no, but he just kind of smiled at me and was like,
yeah, he's kind of just,
he goes,
yeah,
I got a plan. And it's funny because then like he walked away and like, you're like left wanting to ask like 14 more questions. And the next day I was reading an article about like the 10 most sought after free agents this offseason, something along those lines. And like Miles is number 1. And I was like, in my mind, I go like, holy crap, he was talking about Miles. But then I'm like, am I just convincing myself he's talking about Miles because I really want Miles Robinson, right? Like national team, Syracuse, always loved watching him play in Atlanta, like great defender, one of the best center backs in the league. And I'm like, could he really be going to get Miles Robinson? Like, and so I had planned to like ask him next time I saw him. Like but it has to be the right, the right atmosphere without other people around. Sure. And I didn't get a chance. And then they announced Miles Robinson. I'm like, holy crap. And I've told him this story since and he laughed, and so like you have Miles, right? And that's a big, big piece. You have Puka and Obi who are back in the defensive midfield. Like those are really big pieces. Obviously, the Luka piece now is locked in, right? Denke just got signed, right? So now you have Kevin Denke on as a striker, which obviously was the piece that was missing during this playoff run that could have been for FC Cincinnati. And so those are the pieces that you feel really good about. Now you have questions, right? You got to build back some of that depth at center back. You don't know what the Lucho Acosta situation is. We heard Chris speak last week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything more than when I left that press conference then. But I'll tell you this, like watching him work, that if Lucho isn't back, which, would be unfortunate because it's been so much fun to watch him, and, he has opportunity to, Chris said it, like he's the best that's ever played versus Cincinnati. Like that's no doubt.
Yeah.
But he has, if he was here, another 4 or 5 years or whatever, like that's legendary status. But look, if he wants to be home and there's an opportunity to play at home, like we all get that too, in a sense. But I'll tell you this, like Chris and his staff will have it planned. Like there will be wheels in motion in a hurry and people want to play for FC Cincinnati. And that's a good thing. And he has an owner who will back him with the resources to get the right replacement in. So, whoever is at that central attacking midfield position come February when we kick this thing off in the snow globe, like, I'm confident that person will be well equipped to help, lead this offense, whether that's Lucho or somebody else.
I'm sure you see it just as much as we do on Twitter and all the FC Cincinnati fans that, as soon as Chris makes a decision or the club makes a decision, right, the opinions are out there right away. Like, oh my gosh, whatever. I think we're just missing that photo of like Chris smirking, like you were talking about. Like we just need a photo of that. Like, hey, don't worry, he's cooking. Like we see him,
But guess what I told my son today? He texted me. He's upset about Cheeto, right? And as soon as he gets out of school, he sees the news and he texts me and he's upset. And I said, let Chris cook, right? Like that's literally what I wrote back. I was like, let Chris cook, man. Like we have an amazing staff, in Milford that, has brilliant soccer minds. And, Chris is proven to know how to work within the limitations of Major League Soccer, right? These Ian and Chidozie moves and, obviously there's many different ways that the roster is constructed. I think there's a reason for making those moves. Right. That it's like a game of chess, right? Like there's 3 moves behind it, I'm sure. Yeah. I don't know what they are right now, but I trust the chess master over there, in what he's lining up.
We got a lot of competitions too next year, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, but absolutely.
We were talking, I think, with Carter Chapley recently too, and he was giving us his favorite place to visit, and obviously prior to
his list. I haven't had a chance to talk to Carter about this, man.
What'd you think?
I didn't love his list. I'm not gonna lie. I would tell him the same thing. I didn't love it. I didn't love it. He hasn't been everywhere. Yeah. I haven't been everywhere in the league. But it's funny because it made me thought, and I knew you guys were gonna bring it up.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, let me see. It's complicated for me. First and foremost, I'll tell you, like the 2 coolest places I've probably been are Jamaica and Monterey.
Yeah.
Like now, those don't really qualify as regular MLS trips. I may never be back to those 2 places to call a game, right?
Yeah.
But like Jamaica was unbelievable, and Omar was my broadcast partner. Like literally, we were sitting there, and the draw is tomorrow. So like we were sitting there last year, texting each other as he came out last year, and I'm like, well, you're going to that game. Like nobody else has the opportunity to go. Like if you can go, you're in. Like this is your homecoming. And like Omar's the king. We went out for like a true Jamaican breakfast. I got patties and juice and whatever else he ordered. He took care of it all. And like people are coming up to him and like talking to him. We were walking in before the game. We went to get some food at this Italian restaurant on the corner from the hotel. And we're walking in and some guy comes up and grabs my arm. And he's like, hey, you know who you're with? And I'm like, Omar? He's like, no, legendary striker for the Reggae Boys.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, man, Omar, how much you pay this guy? Like, but like everywhere we went, there was a city bus driver like leaning up against the bus. who was a childhood teammate of Omar's. Like he literally, his city bus just happened to be parked outside our, he's waiting for his route to start or whatever. He's leaning up against the bus, like sipping out a coconut or something. And Omar and I are out there waiting to get on our bus to go to training, and the guy's screaming his name, and Omar's like, I played with that kid as a child. Like,
that's crazy.
Everywhere we went. So, like, to be there in Jamaica, that was my first time in Jamaica with Omar, was, like, remarkable. And, like, just that old, like, the stadium's terrible. Like, the broadcast situation was terrible. Like, we didn't have power. We didn't have Ethernet until, like, 20 minutes before. I didn't have a chair until, like, 3 minutes before we went on the air. Like, all this stuff. But, like, the experience was out of this world. Like, just being there with him. Monterey was incredible. Like, that's a worthy – I worked the 2022 World Cup. Like, that Monterey is a worthy – World Cup venue. It will be electric. And Corbin and I just ate Mexican food every day. Like, so, it's coming out of my eyeballs probably. So that's my disclaimer. Like, those two were really, really cool. Like, you can get some really bad Champions Cup trips.
Yeah.
Like, where you're not allowed to, like, step outside the hotel, security issues. There's some crummy trips. Both those were awesome.
Do you have a dream spot for next year? Like if we tomorrow we're announcing these places.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, Costa Rica would probably be high on my list. I think Costa Rica, as I went through the list, I did do that last week. And I think Kevin and I were going through it, and Costa Rica would be cool. Maybe play Alan Cruz's team. I think Mata's team is in too. So, maybe see some FC Cincinnati connections is always fun. When it comes to MLS, I have like a 2-tier judging system. So half of my judging, comes off of like the city, like the meal options, because I don't eat with the team. Like I'm on my own. So like getting a really good dinner, like I'm a big, like get a great meal, just go to bed early. Like I'm not out partying in any cities. I'm too old for that. Like, I just want to get a really good meal and go to bed at like 10 o'clock, maybe watch a little Netflix or something. Like that's my game. So like it's getting a really good meal. Do I have friends I can see in the city, which often is the case? And then the hotel, because I'm staying there, like quiet, great night's rest, like, and we're blessed that we stay in really nice hotels, 90%.
So for you, it's like overall trip, like it doesn't necessarily have to do with just the stadium, right?
No, like San Jose is a great trip and a pretty crummy stadium, right? Like
over here,
like the stadium is literally nothing. I mean, forget the field, like there's nothing special about anything there. Like, so and then that's fine. It's one of those that's that first iteration of stadiums that MLS teams had to build a stadium.
Right.
Doesn't matter where, whatever. They all kind of like Colorado, Toronto, Montreal, San Jose, Chicago's old one. They all kind of look the same. They're all, wherever they could find land and put them. And that's where the league was at the time. Obviously, it's not where we're at now. So when you put it all together, like I love Seattle, like, and that's not a soccer specific stadium, but Lumen Field is cool. But also we get a really good meal there, great hotel, see some friends. Like Seattle's always been a great trip. LA, where we haven't been since 2019, love LA. LAFC Stadium is immaculate. Like, it's in my top 3. Minnesota's in my top 3. TQL Stadium's the best in the league. Like, you have a hard time.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, I'm wildly biased and I don't care, but also like I can look at it through the lens of like, like we got literally like 98% of the things right, and you don't say that about many places that you go. So, I would say I like those two on the West Coast. I haven't been to Portland. I really need to get to. You talk about schedule release, and I don't know what the date is. I'm guessing it's in a week or two. Before Christmas, I'm hoping. I'd like to play my life. I'm along with everybody else. I mean, everybody feels the same way.
Right.
But, I'm really hoping for a Portland game. Would be awesome. My brother lives out there, so it would be great to get out there. And I've heard that city is just amazing. And broadcast booth location comes into it too. Where they're putting us and what the view is. Like, I love going to DC. DC will never be in my top 3 or 4 trips because the booth is terrible. Like, it's so bad. It's like on the end line. Like, they actually forgot about it. And, I worked through the process at TQL Stadium. Like, I consulted on the whole broadcast setup. Like, that was all, me. And like the New York City guys, and I saw them a lot this year. Were 14 times we played them or whatever, and their radio guy and I have become friends, and he was telling me, like, he told the leadership in New York City, he's like, just copy it, like copy and paste what they did broadcast wise at our place, because we got it right. Like DC, like Audi Field booth is just they forgot about it. They literally like had to cut it into their press box, and so it's a real, like, you can't see anything at the other end. Like, it's really tough.
When you went to the World Cup, what was that experience? Was it like, I mean, I'm sure world class and how they set that up, but was that pretty cool and memorable as well?
Yeah, it's remarkable.
MLS, but
yeah, from a broadcast standpoint, it's like completely different, which is crazy. And obviously, I was doing stats and research, so I wasn't calling the games, but there's no booths. I mean, you have 50 different broadcasters calling a game at the same time, so they literally turn a section. Like, I'm not real familiar with the numbers at TQL Stadium, but whatever it is, 224, call it, or whatever those midfield sections are. Say the two sections right off the midfield line across the pitch at TQL Stadium, that you just convert those to media seating, tables, all the way up to the top. And everybody has a 6-foot table with a monitor and headsets. And, like, that's it, right? So I'm crammed into a 6-foot table. It's me, Derek Ray, and Ali Wagner on a 6-foot table to call the game. And right next to us, say, is the Mexican team. And right on the other side of us is the French team. And behind us is the Arabic team. And the English guys are in front of me. And, like, the coolest part about it for me with that setup was, like, I wasn't calling the game, so I could kind of, like, soak it up a little bit. Like, there would be times I'd take my headset off and just, like, listen. And I'm, like, listening to Derek call it in English, and I can listen to the guy in Arabic,
like 20 different languages around you.
Yeah, like that's you're like, holy crap, this is the World Cup.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that experience was awesome. It's 2 years ago. It's crazy because all, like, my memories on social media pop up now of being there for 35 days. And sometimes it feels like it was a lifetime ago, and sometimes it feels like it was yesterday. But no, that was awesome. And to spend how many games we did? We worked 12 games with Derek Ray. Obviously is one of the best. Yeah. Was really cool.
Do you think, like, for obviously Club World Cup is coming next year? I mean, what an awesome experience for TQL. But I mean, teams are coming from all over the world for this, so I'd imagine a similar type international flair of broadcasting will be.
German roots too.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see. And I haven't really heard, or I have a meeting coming up with somebody from the stadium, so I'll definitely be interested to ask how that's going to work. Like, will they be converting a section to be the Tribune? That's basically what they call it, the media Tribune, where it's just rows and rows of people. Or will, I'd imagine that some people will be calling it off the international feed, being sent back. But it's a FIFA event, so I wouldn't be surprised if there is some sort of, now in my brilliance, I put 7 broadcast booths in. So we do have quite a few broadcast booths at TQL Stadium, which is great for things like, MLS Cup when we do host it. I'll be very interested to see what that's like. But yeah, either way, there's going to be an incredible international flavor, in those games. Obviously, the German flair with the teams that were coincidentally assigned to play in Cincinnati. No, I'm thrilled. I think that's going to be such a showcase, and then to have, teams like Bayern Munich and Dortmund playing here in the Queen City will just be awesome.
The mini yellow wall is what I think the Bailey's going to turn into there.
That'd be awesome. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, I think, for the bulk of it, obviously we've been talking FC. If you want to tell us a little bit about, I know we heard the origin story, a little bit of the Fourth Floor Creative, and kind of your mindset through that. I obviously, like, researching before this, you were, I think there was a section there you did an interview with somebody, and you're talking about, like, my wife trusted me and we kind of just did it, and here we are now. Is it how many years now of Fourth Floor?
We'll be 10 years in April too.
Well.
So
okay,
it's pretty. We'll both celebrate 10-year anniversary in 2025, which is pretty remarkable. So I started. It's funny because I knew I was starting the business, and I'd been talking to entrepreneurs in town and kind of pinging ideas off them about proper ways to start a business and things like that. And at the same time, I was pinging stuff off of my connections across college athletics. Like, would you use us?
Like, what are the needs?
I'm not like holding your feet to the fire, but, like, could the market use us? Right. And then if I do this, like, I need you to use us. Like, I'm gonna need some money to run a
Yeah,
business.
can you say it again so I can record you? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right. And and honestly, I went around and I asked some of the biggest like business owners in town for money. Like I had made relationships. I worked at UC, like, big donors we were friends with. We traveled together. They were at bowl games and NCAA tournaments, and these were my friends. And like, I would go to their offices, and they would be kind enough to give me like a half hour or an hour of their time. And I went in like to like 8 of them and asked them for money, and I left with like $0. And I was like, humph. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, I need a little more money. Like, I'm not quite there yet. And it's funny because I went for advice to a friend of mine who had his own photography business, and I knew through UC, and he also owns like a bunch of apartments, property, that kind of thing. And we went to beat ups and had wings or whatever, and I just was like sharing with him the business, like, that was the gist of the conversation. And by the end, he's like, how much? Like, I'm going to give you the rest of the money you need. Like, we're gonna start this together. And like, I didn't go in looking for the money. The one person who gave me money was the one I didn't intend to ask. Like, I didn't even really know he had the resource to give me any money. So I was really excited. So and he ended up being team photographer for FC Cincinnati for years as we got things started. So yeah, we started it in 2015 and got off the ground, and then there's this great parallel, obviously, of FC Cincinnati getting off the ground at the same time and us coming together. They obviously an incredible part of our success. And, I'd like to believe that we're, a very small fraction of, the things we've done and produced for them over the course of the last decade have, helped them in different ways, whether it's been presentations with Major League Soccer or presentations with sponsors or whatever it might be, or player signings or coach signings or whatever. But the business, we had this idea to be able to create videos for folks, not just here in Cincinnati, but across the country. And we're doing that. I had a crew this weekend that were at West Point, shooting the American Athletic Conference, who was our very first partner to sign on was the American Athletic Conference. And they hired us. We sent 3 people out there to shoot the game. And literally just an hour or two ago, it came out on social media. Like, they did a cinematic recap of the championship game. But, I had told them, like, kind of soak it up when you're at West Point. I was there years ago. My brother went to the hockey camp when I was a kid. And I was like, I remember I was like 13, 14 years old, like how cool it was. I was like, so make sure you soak it up. And they came back, we had our staff meeting today, like raved about how awesome the experience was. Like, that's so dang cool. Like, that's cooler than this amazing video they put out. For them, like, that's life experience. And you'll learn I'm big on life experiences. So we try to make videos that emit emotion, right? That whether that makes you cry or it gives you goosebumps. If we do either of those things, then that's mission accomplished. Like, one of our most proud moments, like, we didn't know until, obviously we all had a pretty good idea we were going to Major League Soccer, but I kept asking the question, like, are we going to need to make a video for it? Do we need to make a video? Do we need to make a video? No. Major League Soccer handles it all. We'll do a cinematic recap of the day, which we ended up doing, but nothing for the event. And I want to say 8 days before I got the call, I was at my son's baseball practice, and I got a call. I was like, yeah, so we're going to need a video. It was on Monday night, and MLS wants to see it by Thursday. I think the event was on a Tuesday, if I remember correctly. And I was like, all right, I got to go. I can't really talk because we got to get to work. And, like, I got my crew on the phone, and we're like, all right, here's the game plan, right? And next morning we had things on a whiteboard and laying it out. Like, you're going to get drone shots, and you're finding music, and you're doing this, that, and, like, you're pulling clips, and this is how we're going to make it happen. And one of our new employees edited it, and it was remarkable. Like, it was one of my favorite videos that we've done. But we went in and we were in the room when Carl signed the paperwork with the attorney for Major League Soccer, like the official paperwork. There was only 6 of us in the room.
Wow.
It was my business partner, Brett, was taking photos, so we make sure we had proof of the moment. The attorney, Jeff Birding, obviously was there, and Carl Lindner. And then Brennan, who edited the piece, was with us because he was getting video of the moment, right? So it's only the 6 of us. And as we're there, Jeff asked, do you have the video? Like, he hadn't seen it.
Oh.
And I said, yeah, it's ready. I have it on my computer. And he's like, well, let's wait for Carl to come in, right? And so in this moment where I'm sitting here on my laptop, I pull it up, and I got Jeff on one side, and Carl on the other side of me. And we hit play, and, like, I look at Carl like halfway through and he has like tears streaming down his face. Like, that's the biggest
just
compliment.
Powerful.
Like, like if you can bring somebody to emotions, and that's what we're trying to do with everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether, that's a corporate video or that's a video for FC Cincinnati or any of our other partners, American. Like when the American got that draft last night, like my hope is that on their text message, with their internal people, they were like, holy crap, you got to see this.
Yeah.
Like I tell people when we meet with them is prospects, like, I want you to like jump out of your bed or go find your wife or your spouse or your best friend or the person down the hall and be like, you have to see this.
Yeah.
Like, this is awesome. And that's our goal. So I think we've accomplished that more often than not over the last, 10 years. And that'll be, I got 2 10-year celebrations coming up in 2025. So
Crazy.
I'm pretty excited about that.
A lot to celebrate.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, it's going to be a good year. Absolutely. But thank you for sharing that. That was fascinating. And the fact that you got to be like in the room when that happened.
Yeah,
too.
that's pretty cool.
Like, you're pretty integrated with the beginnings of the club, man. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
We were just wondering what advice you would give to someone interested in like the sports media or broadcasting world today. It's ever evolving, but what are your thoughts on that, or if somebody wanted to start that process?
It is, and it's a good question that I get asked quite a lot. And it's like, do anything, like do whatever is asked of you. When I was at Syracuse as a student, I was calling women's basketball games. That was great. Like, that's experience, right? My first job professionally was women's basketball at the University of Akron. But by the time I finished my 4 years at the University of Akron working there, you know what I was doing? Soccer. Because the soccer team got really good. And my boss called me and he was like, hey, can you do soccer games? Yeah. I can.
Yeah.
Sure. And he's like, cool, find an analyst. Like, we're going to do these games because the team's going to, top 10 team. And we went to the Elite Eight that year. Like, figure it out, and was the first one something that I probably want to listen back to? Maybe not. But you know what I mean? By the end of the season, we had really good broadcasts and we're having fun. And I think the key is, like, there's so much opportunity right now that you should be able to find games. I had a young broadcaster who works on, he works on the radio broadcast for one of the MLS teams, but he's, the pregame and halftime and postgame host. Like, and he's a fill-in play-by-play guy. And he called me this summer, and we talked for a long time. He was like, what should I do? And I'm like, is there any reason you can't leave the city you live in? I know that you've been there. You went to college near there and all that stuff. And he's like, no. And I said, then you got to be willing to go, man. Anybody could call you. San Diego could call you and be like, man, this guy's great. We're going to hire you. Are you willing to move to San Diego tomorrow if they call you? Because you do a good job. They might. You know what I mean? If if there's an opening somewhere else and somebody calls you, like, are you willing to go?
Right.
Like, be willing to go. My wife and I talked about moving. Like, when I was at UC, and I applied for a job in Reno. I applied for a job in Athens, Ohio. I'm trying to think of all these, New Mexico. Like, we were going to go if I'd gotten one of those. You look at these opportunities, and I'm fortunate to be in the situation I am now at FC Cincinnati and with Ford Creative. That I don't even think I have a resume at the moment. Which is a good thing. But, like, if you're in a situation where you're not a primary caretaker for somebody, or like, you could pick your, even if you have a family, you can pick your family up and move. But maybe, if you can go, or if you're young and you're not tied by anything, not by a lover, not by family, not by whatever, like, go. Like, these are opportunities, and bang on every door, because somebody's going to answer. Right. Someone's going to say, yeah, I got 5 games for you. Like, I've been, I miss this time of year sometimes doing college basketball because I haven't done it for a couple of years, and I used to do it quite a lot. But, like, I banged on the guy's door at ESPN, the guy who scheduled all the games for college basketball at ESPN. And I knew he was a tough, nut to crack. And everybody told me, but keep knocking on his door. Every year I would send him a DVD, like, of my best stuff. And finally, he, like, I'm trying to remember. I think he pulled me aside, like, at a conference. He was like, listen, I don't want your best stuff. Anybody can put together, like, their highlight reel. I want a game. Send me a game. I'm going to put it in my DVD player, and I'm just going to fast forward blindly and press play. Like, I just turned it on in my house. And that's how I decide if I'm going to hire people. That's how people get in on the game. Wow. So I did that for like 2 years. No callback. I'll never forget my son. Now he's 13. He was born in September, so he's 3 months old in December. And, when you have a 3-month-old, you're often up in the middle of the night. And so I probably fed him, changed his diaper, whatever. I get back in bed. And, you're kind of wired at that, or, awake at that point. So you check your phone and I have an email. Are you available December 17th to do this game on ESPN Plus or whatever it's called back then? Yes. UC versus, a very small school. And are you available? And I'm like, waking my wife. She's like, you don't wake up anybody. Like when you're sleeping, she's like, why are you waking me up? Is the baby all right? Yes, the baby's fine. ESPN just emailed. I finally got in. You know what I mean? But if I'd given up because this dude didn't email me back.
Right.
And then I got games, right? Then I was in the ESPN mix and they would give me some games every year, which was awesome. So colleges everywhere are streaming every game. Right, you guys. If you put on a game, my friend's the head coach at Kansas for women's soccer, and so I watch a lot of Kansas women's soccer when I can, and therefore I see all types of different broadcasts. Mm-hmm. Home games, road games, and there's all types of different play-by-play guys or girls, and that's good. There should be, but there's opportunities out there for people to get games, and also make connections. I have students who email me and call me and ask for help. I ask people for help, right? JP Del Camera and John Strong are two massive mentors to me. And I sent JP my stuff at one point. He was like, I don't really listen to people's stuff anymore. Not in a mean way, a bad way. He's just but he's like, for you, Tommy, I'll do it. And he sent me back detailed notes, right, on how to be better. He's the godfather. So, right. Ask for help, ask for opportunity, bang on doors. That's the biggest thing. And honestly, again, I'll apply that to broadcast, but we go back to the beginning of this conversation. You can apply that to every field that you work in. Right. Ask for help, ask for opportunity, bang on doors. If you do that, someone's going to be like, dang, that guy is good, man. Or that guy is anxious, or that guy, really wants to be involved with what we have going on. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, that's going to work out in your favor one way or
another. Yeah, I completely agree. Just being persistent in whatever you do, right? And just continuing to learn, be a sponge, right? I think that's it, right? You said for any walk of life, industry, whatever. But Tommy, we appreciate your time.
Oh yeah,
I know
absolutely.
Everybody kind of knows where to find you, but if you kind of want to just give socials where people can hear you, find you for the rest of the season, off season, let the people know.
Yep. Obviously, Twitter account, X, I guess it's called now, Tommy_G. That's the easiest one. You can get me on Instagram. I try to do more there and give you a little behind the scenes. You like the behind the scenes, try to do behind the scenes of trips and everything on Insta stories, gives you that opportunity. That's O3Gs, the letter O3Gs. That's another story for another day. At some point I probably should have changed it before I got too carried away, but I was thinking about the other day. I was like, I can't change it now. It is what it is. Yeah. I think you can find me if you search me by my name. If you can figure out how to spell my last name. But if you just go O3Gs, next time I'm on, maybe we'll get into that story. But Instagram, try to give you some good quality content there. If you're on Instagram, you're gonna get pictures of my kids. You're gonna get their baseball highlights and their soccer highlights and all that as well. But if you don't like it, that's fine. It's okay. No, it's those are the two most reliable spots, I'd say.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you coming on here. Obviously, we're going to look to have you on again. Hopefully, we'll have Carter on again to talk about what your stadiums.
Yeah, he can critique mine and
exactly bashing his.
We can go back and forth. But he's in Dallas. I'm like, dude, come on, that stadium's nothing. That's in that Dallas stadium is in that series of San Jose, Toronto.
Oh, he was Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame's there. So
I know, but that's listen, and I guess we're not necessarily looking for the same things. I need a good broadcast booth.
He
with
could
a good vantage point, right? More than anything. Jimmy and I were outside in Miami. Miami Stadium is like a Rector set. It's a temporary stadium. They're going to build another one. So they're crowded. They're overcrowded as broadcast is concerned now. So we were literally outside next to the cameras. This is happening a couple times. Philadelphia, you're outside next to the cameras, but it's great vantage. I'm on midfield. Yeah. Wow. As long as it's not 20 degrees in Philadelphia or 400 degrees in Miami, neither of those vantage points are good. I like it. Also, I judge you. just to wrap it all up, like I judge your stadium by your food. Again, I mean, you can see where we go. I land back in the same place, like my Friday night meal, my breakfast buffet at the hotel, and then what they serve in the media room. So like you lose major points if your media room food is not very good. Now you can make up for some of your, shortcomings with like a soft serve machine, like Atlanta. And Atlanta doesn't have shortcomings, and Mercedes-Benz is awesome, but they have like a soft serve machine in the press box. Wow. So like you get bonus points when you have a soft serve machine.
Is that more behind the scenes content we'll get this next year of like Tommy trying foods? Yeah,
I mean, come on, 10th year anniversary. Like in 2019, I did much better job of like documenting my MLS eats. So maybe I'll bring that back to the 10th anniversary. I like where your head's at.
There we go. There we go.
Inspiration.
Gotta love it. Appreciate it, Tom. Thanks for hopping on.
Anytime.
And hope to have you on again.
All right, fellas. Great to hear from you. Hope to see you soon.
Yep. Hey, FC Cincinnati fans. We are pumped to share our new sponsor, Peak Cocktails.
I'm sipping on the passion fruit margarita, which is so spicy, and it makes me feel like I'm on the beach.
Ooh, that sounds great. I'm drinking the blood orange spritz, which has a great subtle ginger flavor coming from its scientifically formulated recipe to promote exercise recovery, enhance relaxation, and support a better night's sleep.
Ryan, that's exactly why I love them. Their cocktails are designed to fit seamlessly into your health-conscious lifestyle, giving you the enjoyment of a delicious adult drink without the downsides of alcohol.
Guys, next time you are looking for that post-workout drink or an afternoon pick-me-up, grab a Peak Cocktail. Visit them at www.peakcocktails.com and use the code Flyin Lion at checkout to get 20% off your first order. Zach, enjoy your drink.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks again for listening to an awesome interview with Tommy G, the voice of FC Cincinnati. We had Carter, who was the written voice of FC Cincinnati. So it was really cool to hear his perspective on things, and a lot of cool stuff coming out next year for the 10th anniversary. Like we had mentioned during the episode, we planned this interview, we have all this stuff going on, talking with Tommy, and then, news bomb. Tom Bogert bomb comes in, and, we get this huge trade in the half day deadline for trades in the MLS. So kind of fascinating what's going on with this one, Sam. Cheeto and Ian Murphy are going to the Colorado Rapids for $1 million in GAM. Kind of crazy. Just your initial reactions on what we found out today.
Yeah, obviously initial reactions like everybody else is like, what? Are you crazy? Like, what is going on? And then as more details come about, you kind of understand it more and more, right? And that's where we're not experts, so we appreciate other people kind of telling us like, hey, this is what's going on. This is why we did this, and everything's going to be okay, right? And so from that vantage point, it looks like Barreal, right, is another big news. Cruzeiro declining his option, so he's coming back to the club, and that affects our roster situation because his contract now comes back to FC Cincinnati and plays a part in how much money we can kind of, have there. And the only surplus in that area was kind of in the center back position. We had, a couple of guys that, were making a decent amount of money, plus, like I just said, that just that position in general, we had surplus in. And unfortunately, that's just how things have to go. We know Chris is going to cook, right? Just like Tommy just said. But I think from that standpoint, it's one of those things I'm sure nobody at the club wanted to do, but they kind of like saw it coming. It was just a matter of like, who are we going to get rid of? What team has this GAM, right? Money that they can give us, because right. I'm sure that was a factor too of like, okay, well, we can send these, oh shoot, they don't have like the amount of money that we're looking for. And so looks like it was, right now we don't really know because depending on how we use our money, but I think it looked like it helped a lot for the Colorado Rapids. Obviously they needed help in their defense, and roster wise, it helped us.
Yeah, and I loved your tweet today. It's like, man, this GAM person, it must be worth it. Yeah, no, my impressions were the same. I love Cheeto and what he was doing for us, towards the end of last year. Was starting to get integrated with the squad, had some very nice assists as well. And, as we talked about projected lineups, Sam, like they couldn't wait one more episode to change up our projected starting lineups.
Yeah, yeah. When you mentioned like they may look a little different, right? Did not think it was going to be like the next week, right? We didn't. So obviously we're not the type of people to go back on our predictions. But now we know this could be a very, very interesting projected roster going into next season based off of the past 3 weeks, right? Like things are
every week has been
moving.
something different. And,
Exactly.
you get this one and you're thinking like, we had a surplus in center backs now. Well, last year we had all these injuries and we were scrambling to find center backs. So now it kind of makes you wonder, like, are we kind of scrambling again to find center backs? If you look at the depth or the lack thereof, I should say, it is fascinating. So again, let Chris cook. I'm sure he's got things up his sleeve. This is a freeing up move. Like we said, it frees up a lot of space, a lot of opportunity. A breaking news to the podcast here, Sam, and just kind of scrolling through the Instagram world. Alvaro Barrial has changed his Instagram header to a current player for FC Cincinnati.
Hey.
So take that as you will, but he's changed it officially on IG. You heard it here first. It'll be fascinating to see, if Alvaro's in the orange and blue. As Chris Albright had alluded to, like, it seems more unlikely than not, but like for the current time, the Instagram handle is going to stay the same.
That's
for
what
a
we've
few
been
months.
saying the whole time. Just give us one sand volleyball. Just give us the montage, right? That's all we're looking for there. He could play one sand volleyball soccer game and then he can go, right? But we need that.
Yeah, that's all we want. Just one more of those Clearwater games. But yeah, in all seriousness, like, is it freeing up money for him? Is it freeing up money for, another center back to come in? It's probably going to be U22s at this point.
They were saying that, with the money, right, that Barrial was going to be a DP, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Wasn't that like the situation we were running into?
No, it was all the high TAM players that we had. Like, you have to pay for Miles Robinson, you have to pay for all these other guys that we have. If Obi's going to come off his DP designation, things like that, that we have to find room for these guys on the roster. But like you had mentioned to me in Texas, just, if we have Kip Keller that left as well, Ian Murphy's gone, you're really banking on Matt Miazga coming back, like Tommy said, from a major injury, a PCL tear where, okay, yeah, he's coming back to health and he might be ready, but he hasn't played in live games since last June. We're going to expect him to come back right away, and Nick Haglund coming off of ankle surgery. So
I don't know.
That's a lot of eggs to put in one basket for some question marks, in my opinion, like with those two players. And you don't really have that buffer as you did if you had Cheeto there, if you had Ian there, that, hey, CONCACAF Champions Cup, maybe Matt's not ready for that and travel and multiple games in multiple days. Like, that's the thing that worries me is multiple games, multiple competitions all throughout the year. Where do we find this depth? Like that was our big crutch, last year, the year before that. We need to have, like, I mean, Chris said it in his press conference, we need to have starting type players, in our depth, in our reserves. So hopefully we get more news of that. I'm sure we will. Like, we're going to
100%.
every day.
Like you said, this next week, I think we're going to have a lot of news there. As far as like FCC, like rosters, schedules, like more stuff coming out about that, which is exciting. Gives us more stuff to talk about. But
expansion draft.
Yeah, I mean that too.
This week, like, who do we protect? We have 12 people that we can protect. We talked about it last week, but now that, hey, is this move for Cheeto and Ian Murphy? Is this, hey, we possibly couldn't have protected them, and we don't want them to get taken without any assets. So it's very fascinating. A lot of moving parts. We did see a winner, in the MLS for this past year. We did want to shout out LA Galaxy and former FC Cincinnati player John Nelson for winning MLS Cup. That was pretty cool. Always a big fan of John Nelson. Somebody had put it out there, just loved it, that, hey, maybe John Nelson will come back to FC Cincinnati. We do have a left back, wing back spot open. So John Nelson, you're always welcome in Cincy. But yeah, we just wanted to kind of touch on the news that we had today. Some of the moving parts. Again, there's a lot of stuff coming out. Thanks again to Tommy G for interview, and talking with us. That was awesome. And we'll have more content for you guys soon. Thanks again for listening.